Okay, how to build your Terridial field. It's interesting, you can see that card down there, huh? Right there, mountaintops. That's my birthday card, in case you didn't know. Okay, how to build your Terridial field. Otherwise known as your aura, your biofield, your Merkaba. Okay, just remember it's a Taurus in there, and everything's coming back really fast. Everything you think about, what you focus on, is coming back at you. Back at you, babe. Okay, the human energy field moves in a formation that science recognizes as the Terridial field. The human Terridial field is directed by our breath, and just as we take regular showers... Oh, I already read this one. All right, the goal... Yeah, I already read this one. So I'm gonna not read that one. Rotating the neck, that was that meditation we did apparently. I have this in my notes twice. So let's change this video into the one called Energetic Communication. The first biomagnetic signal was demonstrated in 1863 by blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And they lie about all that, you know, but we'll read it anyway. Remember to discern names of people and all that, blah. Okay, so Gerhard Baule, B-A-U-L-E, and Richard McPhee, M-C-F-E-E, in a magnetocardiogram, MCG, that used magnetic induction coils to detect fields generated by the human heart. A remarkable increase in the sensitivity of biomagnetic measurements has since been achieved with the introduction of the superconducting quantum interference device SQUID, S-Q-I-D, in the early 70s. The EKG and the MCG signals have since been shown to closely parallel one another. In this section, we discuss how the magnetic fields produced by the heart are involved in energetic communication, which we also refer to as cardio-electromagnetic communication. The heart is the most powerful source of electromagnetic energy in the human body, producing the largest rhythmic electromagnetic field of any of the body's organs. The heart's electrical field is about 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical activity generated by the brain. This field, measured in the form of an EKG, can be detected anywhere on the surface of the body. Furthermore, the magnetic field produced by the heart is more than 100 times greater in strength than the field generated by the brain and can be detected up to 3 feet away from the body in all directions using SQUID-based magnetometers. The heart's magnetic field, which is the strongest rhythmic field produced by the human body, not only envelops every cell of the body, but also extends out in all directions into the space around us. The heart's magnetic field can be measured several feet away from the body by sensitive magnetometers. Research conducted at HMI suggests the heart's field is an important carrier of information. Yeah, duh. Prompted by our findings that the timing between pulses of the heart's magnetic field is modulated by different emotional states. We have performed several studies that show the magnetic signals generated by the heart have the capacity to affect individuals around us. And we can communicate with people long distance too. The heart is a generator. It's just fascinating stuff. Biological encoding of information. Every cell in our body is bathed in an external and internal environment of fluctuating invisible magnetic forces. It has become increasingly apparent that fluctuations in magnetic fields can affect virtually every circuit in biological systems to a greater or lesser degree, depending on the particular biological system and the properties of the magnetic fluctuations. One of the primary ways that signals and messages are encoded and transmitted in physiological systems is in the language of patterns. In the nervous system, it is well established that information is encoded in the time intervals between action potentials or patterns of electrical activity. See, this is why it's important to know your belief. You create a pattern, you create an electrical current, and that belief might not be yours, right? So you're doing it because you want to do the right thing. You want to please this person. You're always looking for validation outside of you. Those are all electrical pulses that you're used to. So you have to have new thoughts, new actions, and force them kind of sometimes till you can get the new electrical patterns happening. Let's continue. This also applies to humoral communication, in which biological relevant information also is encoded in the time interval between hormonal pulses, as the heart secretes a number of different hormones with each contraction. There is a hormonal pulse pattern that correlates with heart rhythms. In addition to the encoding of information in the space between nerve impulses and in the intervals between hormonal pulses, it is likely that information also is encoded in the interbeat intervals of the pressure and electromagnetic waves produced by the heart. This supports Pribram's proposal discussed earlier that low-frequency oscillations generated by the heart and body in the form of afferent neural, hormonal, and electrical patterns are the carriers of emotional information, and the higher frequency oscillations found in the EEG reflect the conscious perception and labeling of feelings and emotions. So our emotions are kind of the gas that creates reality, right? So that it's very important that when we have an emotion come up, that we identify the belief attached to it, and that we either own it or we don't. Otherwise, something outside of us that is not our belief system or preference is creating reality and using literally our emotional wavelengths to do it. Sound, energy, it creates reality. We have proposed that these same rhythmic patterns also can transmit emotional information via the electromagnetic field into the environment, which can be detected by others and processed in the same manner as internally generated signals. Okay, heartbeat evoked potentials. A useful technique for detecting synchronized activity between systems in biological systems and investigating a number of bioelectromagnetic phenomena is signal averaging. This is accompanied by superimposing any number of equal length epochs, each of which contain a repeated periodic signal. The emphasis and distinguishes any signal that is time-locked to the periodic signal while eliminating variations that are not time-locked to the periodic signal. This procedure is commonly used to detect and record cerebral cortical responses to sensory stimulation. When signal averaging is used to detect activity in the EEG that is time-locked to the ECG, the resulting wave pattern is called the heartbeat evoked potential. And some of this is like, because I had an EKG in 2014, and they did it wrong, and then they told me I had a heart attack and blah blah blah. I had ultrasound. I wore this thing that recorded all these pulses and stuff that they just said. I wore it for a week, and just after that, the heart was in the center. I saw it on the ultrasound, and I had all these tests because they made a mistake with where they put the electromagnetic thing. And so it's interesting. So they factor in hormones, as the hormones are electromagnetic too. Well, I guess everything is. The heart generates a pressure wave that travels rapidly through the arteries, much faster than the actual flow of blood that we feel as our pulse. These pressure waves force the blood cells through the capillaries to provide oxygen and nutrients to cells and expand the arteries, causing them to generate a relatively large electrical voltage. These pressure waves also apply pressure to the cells in a rhythmic fashion that can cause some of their proteins to generate an electrical current in response to this squeeze. Experiments conducted in our laboratory have shown that a change in the brain's electrical activity can be seen when the blood pressure waves reach the brain around 240 milliseconds after systole, S-Y-S-T-O-L-E. All right, heartbeat evoked potentials. The pulse wave is, I'm not going to read that. Okay, biomagnetic communication between people. We have found there is a direct relationship between the heart rhythm patterns and the spectral information encoded in the frequency spectra of the magnetic field radiated by the heart. Thus, information about a person's emotional state is encoded in the heart's magnetic field and is communicated through the body and into the external environment. The difference in the patterns can be seen clearly. There's a direct correlation between patterns in the heart rate variability rhythm and the frequency patterns in the spectrum of the ECG or MCG. Experiments such as these indicate that psychophysiology information can be encoded into the electromagnetic field produced by the heart. In other words, your thoughts are electromagnetic. Your thoughts and emotions are coded. The triggers, the things that you have, they're electrical impulses. That's why it's important to stop, take a breath. Is this what must I believe to be feeling this emotion? Then you identify whether it's you thinking it or whether it's just something that's in your energy field because it's always been there and it's just a neurological or electronic pathway that you have to change and you change it in an instant when you identify that it's either something you believe or something that someone else convinced you believe, and you have an energetic electromagnetic pattern for it. Okay. So the human body is replete with mechanisms for detecting its external environment. Sense organs, the most obvious example, are specifically geared to react to touch, temperature, select range of light, sound waves, etc. These organs are acutely sensitive to external stimuli. The nose, for example, can detect one molecule of gas, while a cell in the retina of the eye can detect a single photon of light. If the ears were any more sensitive, it would pick up the sound of the random vibrations of its own molecules. The interaction between two human beings, such as the consultation between patient and client, or a discussion between friends, is a very sophisticated dance that involves many subtle factors. Most people tend to think of communication solely in terms of overt signals expressed through facial movement, voice qualities, gestures, and body movements. However, evidence supports the perspective that a subtle yet influential electromagnetic or energetic communication system operates just below our conscious level of awareness. The following section will discuss data that suggests this energetic system contributes to the magnetic attraction or repulsion that occurs between individuals. So a lot of times when we're attracted to people, it's because of an energetic pattern in our field. It might be one we prefer, one we don't. When you call like bonding, toxic bonding or whatever, we bonded with people because it's something that was in our field, but it may not have even been our own belief. That's why it's important to identify everyone, whether it's your own or not, for in the reach for peace and joy and a contentful life. The ability to sense what other people are feeling is an important factor in allowing us to connect or communicate effectively with them. The smoothness or flow in any social interaction depends to a great extent on the establishment of a spontaneous entrainment or linkage between individuals. When people are engaged in deep conversation, they begin to fall into a subtle dance, synchronizing their movements and postures, vocal pitch, speaking rates, and length of pauses between response. And as we are now discovering, important aspects of their physiology can also become linked and synchronized. So that's how, the longer you're with someone, you kind of become more like them. Your fields kind of interact. People are like, oh, there's my other half, right? So instead of two sovereign individuals with a strong, vibrant biofield coming together, they're intermingled so much they kind of become each other and they take on each other's toxic traits and in each other's high vibration traits too. Sometimes that's more on that another day. The electricity of touch, detection and measurement of cardiac energy exchange between people. An important step in testing our hypothesis that the heart's electromagnetic field could transmit signals between people was to determine if an individual's field and the information modulated within it could be detected by others. In conducting these experiments, the question being asked was straightforward. Can the electromagnetic fields generated by the heart of one individual be detected in physiologically relevant ways in another person? And if so, does it have any discernible biological effects? Yes, it does. That's what we do in energy healing. To investigate these possibilities, we used signal averaging techniques to detect signals that were synchronizing with the peak of the R wave of one subject's ECG in recordings of another subject's EEG, or brain waves. My colleagues and I have performed numerous experiments in our lab over several years using these techniques. Several examples are included. Well, I'm not going to tell you about those because we're not going to, yeah. In the majority of these experiments, subjects were seated in comfortable high-back chairs to minimize postural changes within the positive EKG. Electrode located on the side at the left sixth rib and reference to the right supraclavicle fossa according to the International 1020 system. The ECG and EEG were recorded for both subjects simultaneously, so the data, typically sampled at 256 hertz or higher, could be analyzed for simultaneous signal detection in both. So they're trying to see if people's hearts synchronize with each other. Okay, so to clarify the direction in which the signal flow was analyzed, the subject whose EKG R waves, I keep saying K, but ECG, was used as the time reference for the signal averaging procedure is referred to as the signal source or simply source. The subject whose EEG was analyzed for the registration of the source's ECG signal is referred to as the signal receiver or simply receiver. The number of averages used in the majority of the experiments was 250 ECG cycles, so 4 minutes. The subjects did not consciously intend to send or receive a signal, and in most cases were unaware of the true purpose of the experiments. The results of these experiments have led us to conclude that the nervous system acts as an antenna, which is in tune and responds to the magnetic field produced by the hearts of other individuals. My colleagues and I call this energetic information exchange, energetic communication, and believe it to be an innate ability that heightens awareness and mediates important aspects of true empathy and sensitivity to others. Furthermore, we have observed that this energetic communication ability can be enhanced, resulting in a much deeper level of nonverbal communication, understanding, and connection between people. We also propose that this type of energetic communication between individuals may play a role in therapeutic interactions between the healer and the patient. That has the potential to promote the healing process. And we learn this all in energy healing, but it's just worded different. From an electrophysiological perspective, it appears that sensitivity to this form of energetic communication between individuals is related to the ability to be emotionally and physiologically coherent. The data indicate that when individuals are in the coherent state, so when we're like thinking of each other or we've made an agreement to do healings or whatever, we're kind of focused on it together, we're cohesive, then they are more sensitive to receiving information contained in the magnetic field generated by others. In addition, during physiological coherence, internal systems are more stable, function more efficiently, and radiate electromagnetic fields containing a more coherent structure. Okay, so there's a clear signal transfer between the two subjects, and it's measurable. Okay, after demonstrating that the heart's activity could be detected in another's EEG during the physical contact, we completed a series of experiments to determine if the signal was transferred via electrical conduction alone, or if it also was energetically transferred via magnetic fields. The results suggest a significant degree of a signal transfer occurs through skin conduction, but it is also radiated between individuals, which we'll be discussing next. Okay, so heartbeat signal averaged waveforms. So we'll just kind of scan through this. Heartbeat signal averaged waveforms show a transfer of the electrical energy generated by one subject's heart can be detected in the other subject's EEG, so their brainwaves. So one person's heart field they can detect in another person's brainwaves when they hold hands. Okay, heart-brain synchronization during non-physical contact, because the magnetic component of the field produced by the heartbeat naturally radiates outside the body and can be detected several feet away with SQUID, SQID, based magnetometers. we decided to further test the transference of signals between subjects who were not in physical contact. In these experiments, the subjects either were seated side by side or facing each other at varying distances. In some cases, we were able to detect a clear QRS-shaped signal in the receiver's EEG, although the ability to obtain a clear registration of the EKG in the other person EAG declined as the distance between subjects was increased. The phenomena appears to be nonlinear. Yes, and probably not in linear time either. Okay, so for instance, a clear signal could be detected at a distance of 18 inches in one session, but was undetectable in the very next trial at a distance of 6 inches. I think that's, that's based on thought and intent and all that. Okay, anyway, let's see. Data from 2 subjects seated and facing one another at a distance of 5 feet with no physical contact. They were asked to use the heart lock-in technique, which has been shown to produce sustained states of physiological coherence. Participants were not aware of the purpose of the experiment. The top 3 traces show the signal averaged waveforms derived from the EEG location along the medial line of the head. Okay, heart-brain synchronization between 2 people. They're referring to images. So the lower plot shows, the heart's vibration, blah, blah, blah. The 2 subjects were seated at a conversational distance without physical contact. Note that in this example, the signal averaged wavelengths do not contain any semblance of the blah, blah, blah. Okay, what are we looking at here? So, power spectrum analysis of the signal averaged EEG waveform showed that the alpha rhythm was synchronized to the other person's heart. This alpha synchronization does not imply that there is an increased alpha activity, but it does show that the existing alpha rhythm is able to synchronize to extremely weak external electromagnetic fields, such as those produced by another person's heart. So you can synchronize with another person's heart. It is well known that the alpha rhythm can synchronize to an external stimulus, such as sound, light, flashes, but the ability to synchronize to such a subtle electromagnetic signal is surprising. Not to me. As mentioned, there also is a significant ratio of alpha activity that is synchronized to one's own heartbeat, and the amount of the synchronized alpha activity is significantly increased during periods of physiological coherence. All right, so energetic sensitivity and empathy. Okay, it refers to a lot of different pictures, so I'm kind of just skipping ahead. Okay, suggests that when a person is in physiological coherent state, he or she exhibits great sensitivity in registering the electromagnetic signals and information patterns encoded in the field radiated by others' hearts. So when you're feeling sensitive, you're opening to other people's stuff, and that's where we take on other people's stuff, and sometimes we even think it's our own, and it's encoded patterns, and that's why it's very important to know what's ours and what's other people's. Okay, at first glance, the data may be interpreted to mean we are more vulnerable to the potential negative influence of incoherent patterns radiated by those around us. In fact, the opposite is true. When people are able to maintain the physiological coherence mode, they are more internally stable and thus less vulnerable to being negatively affected by the fields emanating from others, right? And that's the torus, right? So it kind of keeps coming back on itself. It appears that increased internal stability and coherence is what allows the increased sensitivity to emerge. This fits quite well with our experience in training thousands of individuals how to self-generate and maintain coherence while they're communicating with others. Once individuals learn this skill, it is a common experience that they become much more attuned to other people and are able to detect and understand the deeper meaning behind spoken words. And we call that intuition, we call that psychic ability, we call that, being an energy reader. They often are able to sense what someone else truly wishes to communicate, even when the other person may not be clear in what he or she is saying. Sometimes when someone says something, the energy don't match. The coherent communication technique helps people to feel fully heard, speak authentically, and with discernment, and promote greater rapport and empathy between people. So go research that. I'm going to do that later. The coherent communication technique. Okay, heart rhythm synchronization between people. When heart rhythms are more coherent, the electromagnetic field that is radiated outside the body corresponding becomes more organized. The data presented thus far indicates that signals and information can be communicated energetically between individuals and that they have measurable biological effects, but so far have not implied a literal synchronization of two individuals' heart rhythm patterns. We have found that synchronization of heart rhythm patterns between individuals is possible, but usually occurs only under specific conditions. In our experience, true heart rhythm synchronization between individuals is rare during normal waking states. We have found that individuals who have a close working or living relationship are the best candidate for exhibiting true heart rhythm synchronization. Okay, and then they give an example picture, but for this experiment, they were seated 4 feet apart and were consciously focused on generating feelings of appreciation for each other. Heart rhythm entrainment between two people. This data was recorded while both subjects were practicing the heart lock-in technique. So research that too, heart lock-in technique, and consciously feeling appreciation for each other. A more complex type of synchronization also can occur during sleep. Although we have only looked at couples who are in a long-term, stable, and loving relationship, we have been surprised at the high degree of heart rhythm synchronicity observed in these couples while they sleep. Heart rhythm entrainment between couples during sleep. Okay. These data were recorded using an ambulatory ECG recorder with a modified cable harness that allowed the concurrent recording of 2 individuals on the same recording. Note how the heart rhythms simultaneously change in the same direction and how heart rates converge. Throughout the recording, clear transition periods are evident in which the heart rhythms move into greater synchronicity for some time and then drift out again. This implies that unlike in most wakeful states, synchronization between the heart rhythms of individuals can and does occur during sleep. Another line of research that has shown physiological synchronization between people was in a study of 30-minute Spanish firewalking ritual. Heart rate data was obtained from 38 participants, and synchronized activity was compared between firewalkers and spectators. That's interesting. They showed fine-grained commonalities of arousal during the ritual between firewalkers and related to spectators, but not unrelated spectators. The authors concluded that the findings demonstrated that a collective ritual can evoke synchronized arousal over time between active participants and relatives or close friends. They also suggest that the study links field observation to a physiological basis and offers a unique approach for the quantification of social effects on human physiology during real-world interaction, a mediating mechanism that is likely informational. Something else called quick coherence technique. We're just going to skip through. There was a statistical relationship between the synchronization and relational measures, bonding, among the participants. The authors concluded that evidence of heart-to-heart synchronization across subjects was found, lending credence to the possibility of heart-to-heart biocommunication. Using signal averaging techniques, we are also able to detect synchronization between a mother's brain and her baby's heartbeat. The pair were not in physical contact, but when the mother focused her attention on the baby, her brain waves synchronized to the baby's heartbeat. That is powerful between mother and baby, but also where your thoughts go, energy goes. That's literal, and that actually creates that through electromagnetic connections, and you're very much so electrically connected to your baby. All right. Biomagnetic communication between people and animals. You can research that. I'm not going to read any more of this. Heart rhythm patterns of a boy and his dog. Oh, I did. That picture was interesting, so you might have to Google that. But the dog, the boy came in excited, and you could see that his heart rated, and then the dog's heart rate went up and matched the boy's heart rate. That was kind of cool. And then they did it with a woman and a horse, too. So you can check that out. This is the link is heartmath.org. It's on that site. All right, well, stay tuned for lots more. Bye for now.